Today on the porch, I'm sitting with my friend Arlene Malinowski, award-winning solo performer, actor, educator, playwright, and master storyteller. Arlene grew up as a CODA, a child of deaf adults, living between two worlds, learning early in life how powerful connection and communication can be. She's a resident playwright at Chicago Dramatists and co-author of the new book Solo with Julie Gainey, continuing her mission to help people find their voice through story. Arlene has a gift of turning stories into connection, creating bridges between people in the most honest and human way. That's exactly what we do here on Your Porch or Mine. You're listening to Your Porch or Mine, where everyone's welcome to pull up a chair, share their story, and hopefully leave laughing at life's beautiful mistakes. I'm Diana Suarez-Mucci, your host and your friend who's ready to listen, right here on Your Porch or Mine. Tell me, how are you? Like, literally, we're on the porch right now. And I don't have a glass of wine because I normally say, let's have a glass of wine. But I'm getting really lame these days. I have a glass of water.
I have Frida.
Oh, nice.
In a cup of tea and then a little water.
That's great.
But I say it's full of vodka.
Okay.
So this one make it. So I'm good. I'm doing really well.
Great.
You know, within the past 12 weeks, since the cancer surgery, and now I'm doing all those things that you have to do to heal.
Yeah, I mean, you're going through a lot, and we don't have to dive into it if you don't want to, but it is something very new that just happened in your life. And we met, gosh, how long ago did we meet? This maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think I was like, I really want to do a solo show. And you really helped me to kind of break it up. And I think that was like really the beginning of a friendship that I didn't expect.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. I was like, you're well-renowned, you are award-winning writer, actor.
And you are really too kind.
It's the truth. So I was so excited to meet you, and then we ended up becoming friends, and I love that. Like, you're constantly making me laugh. You're so funny. And I'm happy to know you. So what I want to do is go back to your childhood a little bit, how you grew up.
Let's go back to the childhood. Let's do excitement.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds great because that's really fun. So your childhood is so interesting. And you talk about this as a storyteller in your solo shows. And one in particular, which I love, the title of that, like, what does the sun sound like?
Best title ever.
It is. It really, really is. So I want to hear about that show in particular because you talk about your childhood and growing up with deaf parents. That is just, to me, so interesting and unique. Can you tell me what it was like?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you about the title of the show and where that came from.
Yeah, I love it.
Best title ever. What does the sun sound like? And that was a question that my father asked me. Because being deaf, he didn't know what made sounds and what didn't make sound.
Mm.
And there was a day, and I was 12, and I was that evil, I was lipstick wearing, cigarette stealing, parent hating, boy crazy preteen in a Catholic school uniform. Puff. I was like that girl. And it was a summer where we did a lot of fighting with each other. When you're 12, I was that 12-year-old girl. And we were sitting in the kitchen, at the kitchen table, and it had been just dark and gray and overcast for so many days that summer. And the sun all of a sudden breaks free from the clouds and just fills the kitchen with this bright and this beautiful light. And my father, he taps on the table to get my attention. And he says, "What does the sun sound like?" And I was like, it has no sound. And then my father paused and looked at me and said, why sometimes I read the sun hit the sidewalk, hit have a sound. And it was in that moment where I had to explain that, the rain made sounds, but the snow, it was quiet. And the wind, you didn't see it, but you could hear it. And it was the first time that I realized I would never know what it would be like to be deaf. And that was like a very formative moment in my relationship with my parents and my relationship with myself in the hearing world.
Was that that's a fascinating story, by the way. And, and you never think like that, like the sun
Right.
hit the ground, right?
So it must have made a sound.
Yeah, that's just makes so much sense to ask the question, but it's actually beautiful and sad at the same time.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And literarily, in
Yeah.
the literary
Well,
sense, it's fantastic.
the best title ever. So how did that change the relationship that you had with your parents?
It just gave me a really profound understanding that it was more than just not being able to hear, that it affected almost every avenue of their lives. And I had really not thought about that. I knew that I would interpret and, that interactions with neighbors was difficult or work. But it wasn't until that moment that I realized, oh, this is bigger. It is, I say being deaf, and I'm going to compare this, and I don't know if I'm comparing it appropriately, to your life, which is growing up with parents who English was not their first language. There are cultural differences. And when there are cultural differences, there is unspoken behaviors that we don't understand because our parents, and to a certain extent us, weren't raised in that majority culture.
Right. It's interesting because I think you say this, you were as the translator, right? You're the bridge between the hearing and the non-hearing world, and you
Yeah.
were always sort of on.
And code switching.
Right.
What's appropriate in the deaf world and what's appropriate in the hearing world. In the deaf world, in my life, I am a deaf girl in a hearing body. My facial expressions are too big. I'm too loud for the hearing world. But in the deaf world, all of those things are very appropriate.
And so, and it is like the two different cultures. And in my world, it is, gosh, it was almost like when I was a kid, I grew up in an all-white neighborhood. That's part of the story of growing up with big hair, right? So that's a different world than the world that my parents are from. Mommy's speaking Spanish, my grandmother's speaking French. We're all speaking Spanglish and all of that. And it's true. It's like I'm this way in this house.
Right.
Having to be the daughter, like, I don't know, the way that I communicate with them, and then switching to the way I communicate with the all white world. You know what I mean?
Code switching. It is. And that
Yeah.
makes us more facile, I
Yeah.
think, in some respects. But in other respects, it impinges on identity.
Right. Did you ever have a time where you felt self-conscious? Oh, I can't even say it. This is my Spanglish coming out. So this is my upbringing of like having so many languages and not being able to say self-conscious, conscious.
I will tell you that I wasn't.
Yeah.
Self-conscious because I had that kind of constitution. I understood
Yeah.
that sometimes the hearing world forced me to do interpreting because that people weren't willing to write. So like I understood all those constraints put upon us by the hearing world. My sister, however, I think that she was self-conscious a little bit, but
Yeah.
I wasn't born with that concern.
That's so
Were you?
Yeah, sometimes, well, I had sometimes there were times when it felt where maybe it was a parent teacher conference. I'm trying to think of an example. Parent teacher conference, and mother comes and she doesn't speak English. So I have to tell her how great I am, how well I'm doing in front of my teacher, so, and trying to translate, there's some words. I wasn't always the translator because my mom really tried hard to understand English, but it definitely, there were times when I was like, oh man, like I wish she could just speak the language and it'd be easier on me.
Oh, it would be easier on everybody. But you also had a really, like me in a certain respect, people would notice you had that big hair
Yeah.
and that changed the way that people viewed you. And me doing this to my parents, with my parents, that changed the way people viewed us.
Interesting. I think we talked about this a while ago, how were there some, in our world, we call it like it's the white, there's racism on maybe many sides. Did you find that there was discrimination, some kind of discrimination against the non-hearing world in a hearing world?
Oh, well, what's interesting is I don't know if there was discrimination on my parents' part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, but I also believe that my parents' world was divided into hearing and deaf. They wouldn't say that black guy. They would say that hearing guy. So race didn't really play a factor in my parents' life. It was whether you were hearing or deaf. That was delineating. My father would say, that man across the street? Yeah, the hearing man. I was like, Daddy, everyone on the street is the hearing.
Oh,
Which made the deaf community very, very connected and insular. Because there were times that my parents, the only people that they spoke to were each other and us all week. He went to work in a hearing factory, and my mother shopped in hearing stores, and they went to a hearing church, except for once a month, which there was deaf church.
oh my goodness.
And deaf church was so great because there were so many other codas.
Okay.
Parents would be downstairs in the gym cafetorium having a cup of coffee and, food after church. And all of us, and they would be greedy for conversation with their hands, just greedy.
Oh.
All of us hearing kids of the deaf parents would run around the corners of the church with lipstick on our palms yelling, "Stigmata! Stigmata!" Because there was no one there that would say,
Right. Interesting.
My parents would look and say, "Oh, beautiful. She talk." And no one ever said, "Arlene, be quiet," which is why I'm the loudest girl in the whole.
And why you're like a performing artist and all theater works for you because you've learned to become theatrical.
Yes.
Right. With your expressions, you're amazing. It's such a fascinating upbringing. I think about, and one of the things that I didn't understand when we met, when you said CODA, like for people who don't know what that means, can you tell us what that means and what does that mean to you in your world and the people that that are also CODAs?
So what's interesting about CODA, child of deaf adult, is that the name comes from, in music, a coda is a selection that is similar to but different from the main movement of music. So we are codas, we are similar to but different from. And it was an organization that was started, I'm going to say, like 40 years ago. It started out as just a few people who had deaf parents sitting in a room and talking about it. And what came out of that was that we have a history, that we have a culture, that we have behaviors, and we have a shared experience that very few people on this planet have.
Yeah, it's just that's why I go to it because it's so fascinating. I've told my family, when I share stories about you, and they're just like, how does, like you and your sister were hearing what that experience is like. And thanks for sharing that. I mean, that's just fascinating. And the son, what does the son sound like? Can you tell me about the show itself, or like what you're hearing there?
I would love to. What does the son sound like is the story of a prodigal daughter. Growing up, I loved the deaf community. I was part of it. They claimed me. And then when I turned a certain age, I ran away from the community. I wanted to take my hearing identity and push off that deaf identity. I wanted to develop my own who I was. And then in the end, I realized that my identity in a great part was the deaf identity. And so I came back to the deaf community.
And so to this day, I know your parents have passed, God bless them. Are you still a part of that community? Like, did they leave that legacy with you that you still want to be ingrained and support, or you're active in the community, right?
Well, what's amazing is that in the CODA community, I am very active. And because I am active in the CODA community, then I am still connected to the deaf community in a deep and a profound way.
Yeah.
And so what is so interesting is what the CODA community, the adults have been able to do is create CODA camps that start with K, kids of deaf adults. Okay. And those are opportunities for hearing kids of deaf parents to come together and discover their deaf and CODA and hearing pride, to understand that other people share this experience. It has given so many people a place to stand, because it can be a very isolating, and you know this, it can be a very isolating position to be in. But my parents gave me a language, a culture, a place to belong. I mean, what I got is, I can never measure that.
And so few people understand that. But the way that you can describe it, for me, of ethnic parents, of having been given a culture, a different language, being bilingual, in some cases trilingual. I don't speak French fluently, but I understand it. It just has opened up my world to even, like, it is a gift, actually, and you didn't feel like that when growing up. I didn't feel like, wow, this is a gift. It was almost like, it's kind of a pain in the ass. But as an adult, right, seeing that richness, it's a gift. I agree with you. And I don't know what it was like for you, and you're explaining it as just, it's beautiful, but I get the sense of it by the way that you describe and associate that with my own life. And it's amazing, because it opens up your world, I think, to be more empathetic, to understand even you, right? Like, even what we're talking about, even multicultural people, different races, being open to seeing the world in a different way.
Disability.
That's right. Disability too. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So,
I mean, yeah, that's true. And the sensitivity, I think we're missing that a little bit in this culture, in our world, the sensitivity to, I kind of feel that way.
I know we are so missing that.
Sorry, I thought you were like, you think? I was like, yeah, I kind of think so. Yeah.
No, right now, especially right now, politically, anybody who is, not majority cultured is othered. And unfortunately, this current administration is doing everything they can to make people white Christian, right? They're cutting services for deaf and disabled people. They're changing laws. That there is all of that underground hum about if you can't speak English, right? I mean, there's that hum underword that is like so much of what you're seeing on social media are people screaming to white people screaming to anyone, if you don't speak English, go back. And there are people that are, if, whether it's Asian, whether it's black, whether it's brown. I mean, it is.
Yeah, it's painful. It's painful. It's painful to hear, to watch, to experience. I said this to somebody. I'm not a political person, and it's interesting because as an artist and a storyteller, a lot of us that are in this world, artistic world, use the platform, right, for political, also to share their political views and social justice. And I do my best for and sharing stories. I think we learn from each other. I think you as a storyteller, like hearing your story about growing up with deaf parents, that changes my perception. What I hope to do is change perception by sharing my story on the stage, telling the story out loud, like whether it's plays or books or what have you, right? That I hope to change one person's mind. And if we can do that a person at a time, then, the world could be a better place. And that's why I love this. We have a platform to share our stories. I try not to listen to all the noise, Arlene. I am avoiding that so much. I have a friend who's very political, and I literally asked, I said, oh, please, my brain cannot take one more negative because it's so bad. So all the negativity that's out there, what do? We want to spread joy. I want to spread joy and laughter and storytelling so we could change the world. And I think we're doing it. I think the people, at least around us, and then you change those people, our children and their children's children. I think we'll see a change for the better.
Well, this is what's interesting. Bertolt Brecht said that art is not only a tool to hold a mirror up to the culture, but it is also a hammer to shape it. And I think that that's what a lot of art does, whether movie or films or books, or it makes you look at an experience from a different point of view.
Right. I know. I love that. And I feel very lucky to have been given this passion and desire, right? To tell stories. Like, wow, it's a gift.
What's interesting is that in the deaf community, there is no written language for American Sign Language because it is a picture, it is a conceptual language. So literally, the history, the mores, the culture is passed down from hand to hand to hand, right? It is all in here. And so in the deaf community, story is a high art and the storytellers are revered. And so at Deaf Club, if somebody would start telling a story, then everybody would come around and they're like, oh, they would say, my father Charles is telling a story. And everybody would come and they would, for solo, I'm going to use this as a solo example, they would jump in and out of characters, break the fourth wall, take on the physical mannerisms. It was so much like solo show that when I saw my first solo show, which was Amy Hill's Tokyo Bound, I looked at the stage and I said, that I can do that.
I was just about to ask you. Great segue into, I love it. Look at you. Great segue into your career. And how it started. And here it is. You're just telling me how it started. And when did you know like you were good at it? Like,
Um, I wrote my first play when I was in fifth grade.
oh my,
And what I would do is I would sign the lines to my mother, who would type it, which means I could get an entire play done in less than an hour because there was no going back because it was the old fashioned typewriter. Right. So there was no going back. The line you said was the line. So my first play, called The Christmas Ornament, had 13 people and 26 lines. Everybody got 2 lines.
oh, wait. So who were your actors?
Oh, my classmates.
That's
Even
great.
back then in the fifth grade, fairness was an issue for me. That is my hot button. Fairness and equity have always been, but that's not fair. I say more than I'd like to.
Yeah.
More than I'd like to. So yes, I started writing. I did plays and theater for a lot of my life. And then, like so many people, went into a world where I could make a living. And so I was doing the UCLA doctorate program. And on the side, I was doing their acting program. So in some of my classes, I had 35-year-old colleagues, and we were writing all of this information. And then the next class, I would be with somebody who was 17 crying on the floor. It was. And then when I was done with the doctorate, I looked at Dan Clark, my husband, and I said, I'm really an artist. And he said, yeah, I know. Now, everything I learned in that doctoral program, I was been able to apply to working with groups. It was specifically training and teaching. Mm-hmm. So all of that information came together for me in a really great way years later, in a way that I would have never suspected.
And so all of that, right, led you to teaching, which is because, people, and I literally was just telling this story to somebody that my career, I have 2 careers. One has been my career in technology as a business development person, and this is how I make my living. And then the other alongside is my career in playwriting and storytelling and children's books. But I always go, well, I'm not earning a living doing the things that I'm really passionate about and that I'm gifted in. I have gifts in the business development world, and I do love technology, but I'm trying to, how do you bridge that? Like you learned, I guess, through getting the PhD, getting your doctorate, right? You're able to earn an income through your art as well. I mean,
no, I've always had 2 career tracks, but
okay.
But I was so lucky because I also recognize, and I say this to my students all the time, that you are so lucky that you have a job that supports your art and your first identity. That you are and so I always tell them, do not look at your job as, your B plan, because it's not. It's the thing that supports your A plan.
Right. And I look at it that way too. It's like, wow, if I didn't have this career, I could not afford to support the projects that I'm on, to get things out there, to produce a show and take a course, learn more of the craft, join workshops, going to Paris, to take a playwriting workshop with Emilio Williams, next week. Oh my gosh, next week. Those things, right? So I could afford to get the plane ticket so that I could meet with a group of playwrights, also to have, to work with other artists. Like, it's true.
I have been lucky though to segue now in this last decade to segue from all of my education work, which is where I was, into just working in the arts, whether it's education director at Chicago Dramatists,
Right.
teaching, having clients, which is how I
Right.
met you.
Right. Right. And you love teaching, which I think
God, I love it
I
so.
know you're so good at it. So not only are you an amazing award-winning performer, but you just finished, published a book that, congratulations, by the way. Huge congratulations. I wanted to buy it and I was looking for a digital copy. It's not available, digital copy, but I want a signed book from you. So I can't wait to read it, but I would love to hear about that journey. What got you to the idea to write this book? Tell me all about it and how that's going.
This book was the book I wish I had when I started solo. And there are very few books that are out there. And I knew that I wanted to leave. This sounds so corny and stupid, but I knew that wanted to leave a legacy. And I was thinking about the book, and I always said, one day, someday, I'm going to write a book. Oh, I can't wait to tell you this story. So I was meeting with my friend Julie Gainey, who is a solo artist and a really great actor and a storyteller and a writer. And we were having coffee together. And out of my mouth just came, I'm thinking about writing a book about solo. Do you want to write it with me? I had not thought about that before I had met with her. It just came out of the sky, right out of my mouth.
Wow.
And then she said yes. She didn't even take a long time. And it has been the sweetest, oh my God, the sweetest relationship and the best way to write this book, because the book that I would have written could not have been the book that we would have written. And, of course, with storytelling and playwriting and plays, a lot of the basics are very similar, but how we come at them, the exercises that we brought, the different vocabulary and language around it. It was fun to write this book. I
I,
know.
I love that. I love that. And what interesting, first of all, that it just came out of the sky, like you're meant to
Came
do
out of the
this,
sky.
but it was in you and that you said it out loud. But I love that you chose to collaborate on it. You could have easily just been like, I'm just going to do it myself and then I'm writing
Right.
it and it's going to be great. But that you chose someone to collaborate with and then how her voice is now intertwined with yours, and that now the book, I'm sure, and I can't wait to read it, is that much more rich because of it.
More than rich, though, I have a way of writing. I've got a very specific style. She has a very specific style, but
Mhm.
together we have this third voice,
Oh, love that.
which is so interesting. And the book is, because it is a book about solo storytelling, it's also
Mhm.
really good for people who do stories on stage,
Okay.
that there are lots of small stories within it. So we use the book as an opportunity to show our work through examples. So there are
Okay.
lots of really lovely stories, not a textbook.
Oh, I love that.
I think you leave feeling like you know Julie and you know me. And that's what we wanted.
Amazing. And you get to walk away with some real concrete tools, right? That someone can use, like for even in business, when I think about giving a presentation, right? A lot of the presentations are so boring, freaking boring. And you're just like, ah, but if you could tell a story, you could begin with a story, in the middle, you tell another one, and in the end, you wrap up with a story, you've captivated your audience. And I'm excited to, even as a storyteller, I use stories a lot and sometimes in presentations, but I probably should do more of that. And I think I'm excited to see what examples you have.
There is brain science that's attached to that. And that when you are listening to facts and figures, one part of your brain lights up. But when you put in a story and multisensory details, that more parts of your brain light up. And when that happens, it releases all of these chemicals and dopamine and oxytocin that gets your audience with you. You have this neural coupling. I mean, it is crazy good, which is why politicians will always say, growing up on a farm in Iowa, my father would tell me when I was shucking corn with him.
And then everybody's like leaning in more.
Right. The lean in is what you want as an artist, no matter what kind of artist you are. Painter or an author, you want people to lean in.
Right. And then they leave. And I do know this, that the emotion that you have left with them, right? This is something that they'll remember. Like when an emotion is attached to a story, an experience, a moment that and you've got an emotion, that stays.
It does. Both bad and good, right? Because we have seen theater, which is deeply disturbing or deeply difficult to listen to, but you leave with a real imprint on you. And then this goes back to how we can change people's point of view. And that's with like any story, that by the end of a story, there needs to be some kind of a transformation for the main character. And it doesn't need to be a good transformation. It's just a change in thought, word, deed, intention, understanding, point of view. And sometimes when I am watching a solo show or watching a piece of theater or watching a movie, especially a movie these days, that transformation doesn't always happen. And then I'm left feeling like,
like what?
I'm still thirsty.
No, like, come on. Right. That's such a good, thanks for that tidbit. Like you just gave our audience a little like part of the book, some great advice.
That's the difference between an anecdote and a story.
Right.
A story creates meaning out of chaos. An anecdote just tells a series of events, but a story is journey of events, journey of emotions tied together with some kind of reflection of feeling. Because like many women have a birth story, right?
Right.
But we want to hear your birth story or your main character's birth story that changed them as individuals.
Yeah. I mean, we want to, to me, so a way to connect with each other that when I hear your story, I can see myself either some part of it, right? It's not like I'm not a child of deaf parents or wasn't raised that way, but ethnic parents, now I can relate. You just told me this really great story. It's meaningful. And I think people are always looking for a way to connect with each other, like maybe, but they don't even know it. And then hearing your story just brings people, like it just connects the world. I feel that way. And I think we need more storytellers. We need people getting on the stage, solo performance. Like I love watching a stand-up comedian too, because they're so real. They're telling their stories and it's funny as hell. And you're like, yeah, that happened to me. So you're cracking up because you're laughing at yourself. It's a way to like really connect. And I love that this is interesting that you chose that medium. I mean, was there a reason around the solo show that drew you in more than, because that's really your forte. Right? That's your thing. Like Arlene Malinowski is like, you are the solo
That's
show.
my thing.
Yeah. Like why solo show?
Well, I'm gonna go back a little bit from what you said, and that is, you know how you said it connects, you connect with people through story or through some story. That's part of craft. And what that means is your story, whether you've written a book or you're watching a solo show or listening to a storyteller at a bar, like we have done
Right.
together,
Yeah.
that you as the writer, and you know this from your solo show, Girl with the Big Hair, and your traditional ensemble plays,
Yeah.
is that there needs to be a universal truth. There needs to be a bigger truth that you as the artist are trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be a search for identity. It might be when you fall, you must pick yourself up. The universal truth may be that you can teach yourself the things that you did not get as a child. But there is a universal truth, a bigger truth, that even though an audience member may not be a CODA, may not have Spanish speaking parents, that there's something about that piece. And I think in your show, the first drafts of your solo show itself, looks at identity, and it also looks at a profound sense of belonging.
Right.
And so while they may be the fat kid in the gym who has
Right.
never belonged, or
Right.
the person that, for whatever reason, whether they are gay or they don't feel smart enough or they
Right.
don't feel like personality wise they've connected, that sense of belonging, so they can listen to your solo show in the crafting of it and have that understanding.
I love that. I'm going to do a solo show.
You've done a solo show.
I did breaking news, in New York City, and but it was a monologue. It was a monologue. 10 minutes. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that I could do like a.
Yes, because you've written the solo show. All I need to do is get you on a stage.
All right.
You have a solo show done. It's just sitting. You're submitting to let other people tell this story.
I am. That's right.
I'm going to submit this. No.
That's true. Yeah.
I know. We're going to get you up on a stage.
We're going to do it. All right. We're going to do it. What? So I know all right. It's already, I've taken up so much of your time, but it's so fun to talk to you. What would you say? Like I do on your porch or mine, because I always say, let's have a glass of wine or whatever. And like, I call it the last sip. The last sip.
Are you last sipping me already? Oh my God, you were last sipping me. You're like, get out of the bar. You don't have to go home, but you're not staying online with me.
Last dance, last chance for love.
You just
wait.
dated yourself, sister. Like, so much.
I do that with my show is based in the 70s and 80s, girl. That's a lot of dating myself, but it doesn't have to be the last sip. But I do want to say this because I love your husband, Dan, and
honestly, right?
Yeah, he's the best. Like, do you feel like his support changes because I do feel like people that lift you up, like it changes how you show up, it changes the experiences you have, and that support system. I mean, how do you think that having Dan in your life we could talk about Dan a little bit, because I kind of like the romantic side of how you met really quick. This is my last sip is like, I need a Dan story.
Dan story. Okay, I'm going to tell you a Dan story and then I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
So the first time that my parents, deaf, meet Dan, hearing, I say to him, oh my God, you're going to meet my parents. I need you to learn sign language in the next few minutes. And so he says, okay. And I teach him. I say, my parents are going to ask you what? How are you? And what are you going to say? And he says, very good, thank you. I'm like, okay, great. I can show you that. Very is from the center out. That's important. Good, your palm facing heaven. And thank you is from the chin. Very good, thank you. Got it. And he's like, okay.
Oh, okay.
So my parents walk in, and they know that I've got this man that I So my father, who always knows how to break the ice, looks at Dan and says, "How are you?" And Dan looks at my parents and then looks at me, and so proud, he signs. And what he said was not very good, thank you, because I said from the center out. He signed out to the center. He said, fucking is good, thank you, to my parents. And Lord, oh my God. It was, I tell that story so often and so much. We laughed so hard.
All right, do the sign again. Show me very.
Very is from center out.
Out. Okay.
And then
very.
When you do it from out to the center, it means relations. Relations are very good. Thank you.
How did your dad respond? Did he laugh or that's hilarious?
I think I blacked out a little bit. But then my mother, so I'm going to add a CODA to that story.
Okay.
So everything is fine. I say, let's sit down. So my parents and I sit down. The waiter comes over and he asks, does anybody want anything to drink? So I interpret for my mother. And she says, no, daddy no like me. Woo. And I'm like, oh my God, now my mother sounds like a lush in front of my husband, who has just informed them that how much he enjoys having sex with their daughter. So I say to my mother, come on, it's a celebration. Have something to drink. Now, my mother is deaf, but loves to talk. She uses her voice. She grew up oral.
Oh, okay.
So my mother looks at me and then around the table and then looks up at the waiter and she says in full voice, I'll have penis colada. And like, I don't even know what to think. So I look at my mother and I say, it's pronounced pina colada. He said, that's what I say, penis colada. I no. You said, and then I do the sign.
Oh my God.
And mother looks around and says, what do you think they're going to bring me? True story. I'll have penis colada. Oh my God. Don't you love Mom?
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, bless her.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, see, you wouldn't have these experiences.
Because on your lips, pina looks the same.
Right.
I have penis colada. There are waiters and bartenders across the country that are scarred.
How many times do you think she has said that in her lifetime? And you're like,
I know.
You mean, what did you say?
I told her she just needs to change to White Russians.
Oh my gosh. God, that's a great story. That's a great last sip story.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm so glad that my parents were part of your last sip.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that I had the chance to meet them. They sound so wonderful.
They are wonderful. And what is so great that, your relationship with people who have passed does not stop in the silence of death. It keeps on going. And one of the ways it does in my family with Dan is that sometimes we will just speak like my parents. Dan will do a little sign language, or my mother would say, I appreciate you so much. So that's what I'm going to end with. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my God.
Have the time with you.
Aw, thank you.
If today's conversation made you laugh, think, or just breathe a little easier, share it with someone you love. Catch the podcast wherever you listen and follow me on Instagram for more. Remember, the porch is always open and there's always a spot for you.